The night sky split open like a jagged wound, revealing the vast, ominous silhouette of the Galactic Empire's warships. Silent and unyielding, the alien vessels hung above Earth's atmosphere like black sentinels, their shadow blotting out the stars. Captain Elias stood at the crumbling window of an old military outpost, watching the fleet descend with cold, calculating eyes. He knew what was coming. He'd seen it before. Only this time, the stakes were far greater. "They're here," said a voice behind him. It was Dr. Nadia Reyes, her tone flat but tense. She crossed her arms, staring up at the ships with barely concealed fear. "I thought we'd have more time." Elias turned to her, his jaw set in grim determination. "They've never needed time. They come in, overwhelm, and leave nothing but ashes. But they haven't fought us yet." "Us?" Nadia raised an eyebrow. "You mean the handful of survivors hiding in bunkers across the world?" "We're scattered, Elias. The rest are too scared or too broken to fight back. They'll fight if they know how," he replied, voice low but resolute. "And we'll show them." Marcus Novak, a grizzled ex-soldier with a scar running across his cheek, strode into the room, his heavy boots clanking on the steel floor. He'd been watching the perimeter. "If we want to give them a reason to fight, we need something better than hope," Marcus said, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "Something big. Something that'll make those bastards bleed." Elias gave a curt nod. "That's why we're going to take their tech." Nadia blinked in surprise. "You're talking about a raid? On them? With what? A few rifles and scavenged explosives? That's suicide." "Maybe," Elias admitted, his eyes narrowing. "But they've got a weak spot. I've been watching their patterns for weeks. Their entire operation is controlled from the mothership, a centralized system. If we can get in, disrupt their comms, take out their control grid, it'll throw them off balance. Just enough for us to strike." Marcus grinned, the first glimmer of excitement crossing his hardened face. "Now you're speaking my language." Nadia shook her head, disbelief turning to exasperation. "You're insane. You really think we can just waltz onto an alien ship and hack their system?" Elias stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper, laced with urgency. "We don't need to destroy them. Just make them think we're a bigger threat than we are. Fear works both ways, Nadia. If we hit them hard enough, show them we're not afraid to fight back, we buy time. Time to rally the others." Nadia looked away, biting her lip. "Time? We're running out of that, Elias." Outside, the low hum of the Empire's ships grew louder, an eerie resonance that vibrated through the ground. Lights flickered as the power grid struggled to hold. The Empire was tightening its grip, preparing for the final assault. Earth's defenses were a patchwork of desperation, barely enough to slow them down, let alone stop them. But Elias knew this wasn't about stopping them, not yet. "We'll need a team," Marcus said, breaking the silence. "A small one. People who know how to move fast and hit hard. I've got a few names in mind," Elias said, pulling up a holographic map of the nearby city. It was nothing more than a ghost town now, abandoned after the first wave of attacks. The Empire had struck quickly, targeting major population centers and leaving the survivors to scatter into the wilderness or hide underground. "We'll hit their comm tower here. It's a low-security outpost, but it's linked to their central system." Nadia frowned, eyes narrowing as she studied the map. "And you're sure you can override their encryption?" Elias met her gaze. "I'm sure we'll find a way." Another tremor shook the building, dust falling from the ceiling as the ships moved closer. The ground seemed to tremble beneath their weight. Nadia exhaled, her skepticism softening into reluctant acceptance. "All right," she muttered. "But if we're doing this, we need to be fast. Once they realize what we're after, they'll come down on us like a hammer. They'll never know what hit them," Marcus said, already gearing up, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Elias turned back to the window, his expression hardening as he watched the dark shapes in the sky. He could feel the weight of the coming battle pressing on his shoulders, but there was no room for hesitation. Not anymore. The Galactic Empire may have ruled the stars for centuries, crushing worlds under their heel, but Earth was different. Earth had been broken before, and each time, humanity had risen from the ruins stronger, fiercer. And now, as the Empire descended, Elias felt a spark of something unfamiliar: hope. A dangerous, reckless hope. One that made him believe that maybe, just maybe, this time they wouldn't go quietly into the dark. "We make our move at dawn," Elias said, his voice like steel. "We show them what it means to challenge humanity." The silence that followed wasn't of fear. It was resolve. The cold wind howled through the empty streets as dawn broke over the horizon. The city was a husk, its once towering structures reduced to crumbling ruins, swallowed by time and war. Elias crouched in the shadow of an abandoned skyscraper, his breath visible in the frosty air. Beside him, Marcus scanned the skyline with binoculars, his finger resting lightly on the trigger of his rifle. Every creak, every gust of wind seemed louder in the eerie silence, but they knew this part of the city was dead, at least for now. "We're clear," Marcus whispered, lowering the binoculars. "No patrols. Not yet, anyway." Elias nodded. "Good. We move now." Nadia Reyes, positioned just behind them, clutched her data pad, scanning for signals from the Empire's calm tower. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. "I'm picking up their security grid," she said quietly. "It's light, like you said. Automated turrets, nothing we can't handle." Elias glanced at her. "Stay sharp. The moment we trip their sensors, we've got maybe 5 minutes before they respond." She nodded, though doubt flickered in her eyes. The plan was risky, bordering on reckless, breaking into an Empire-controlled communications hub with little more than a few stolen weapons and determination. But Elias knew they didn't have the luxury of waiting. If they didn't strike now, the Empire would tighten its hold on Earth, and their chance to disrupt the enemy's operations would slip away forever. "We stick to the plan," Elias said, his voice calm but firm. "In and out. No unnecessary risks. Get in, plant the virus, and get out before they even know we're there." "Sounds simple enough," Marcus muttered, checking his rifle again. His eyes gleamed with the thrill of action. "Let's hope it stays that way." The team moved swiftly through the ruins, their boots crunching softly on the broken asphalt. Every corner held the possibility of danger, but the city was eerily quiet, as if it had already surrendered to its fate. The Empire's warships still loomed in the sky above, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch forever. They reached the perimeter of the calm tower, a massive, imposing structure, its sleek metallic exterior a stark contrast to the crumbling city around it. It hummed with power, the faint blue glow of the energy shields visible in the morning light. Elias signaled for Marcus to take point. The soldier moved with practiced efficiency, slipping through the gaps in the shield's coverage, deactivating the nearby turrets with a handheld device. In seconds they were inside the tower's outer defenses, unseen and unheard. Nadia stayed close to Elias as they approached the main access terminal. Her fingers flew over her data pad, her eyes darting between the screen and the tower's security systems. "I'm in," she whispered, her voice tense but controlled. "Uploading the virus now." Elias stood guard, scanning the area for any sign of movement. Every second felt like an eternity. The virus Nadia had created was designed to scramble the Empire's communication networks, disrupting their ability to coordinate ground assaults. It was their best chance at slowing the enemy down, buying the resistance time to regroup and strike back. But it was also risky. If the Empire detected them, their response would be swift and brutal. "Almost there," Nadia muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. Marcus, standing a few feet away, tensed. "We've got movement," he hissed, his grip tightening on his rifle. Elias' heart pounded in his chest. "How many?" "2 drones coming in fast." Nadia's fingers moved faster. "Just a few more seconds." Elias raised his weapon, eyes trained on the distant shapes. The drones' engines whined as they approached, their sleek, silver forms cutting through the air like predators honing in on prey. "Nadia, now would be a good time." "I'm almost." Suddenly, the terminal lit up, and the faint hum of the towers shifted. Nadia's eyes widened. Done! The virus is in! Move! Elias barked, as the first drone swooped overhead, its searchlights sweeping the ground. He fired a quick burst, hitting its engine. The drone spun out of control and crashed into a nearby building in a burst of flame. But the second drone wasn't far behind. Go! I'll cover! Marcus shouted, unloading a volley of gunfire as he backed toward the exit. Nadia scrambled after Elias, her breath coming in sharp gasps. They bolted through the perimeter, Marcus covering their retreat with precise, controlled shots. The second drone exploded in midair as a well-placed round tore through its core, but there wasn't time to celebrate. They'll send reinforcements any second, Elias said through clenched teeth. We need to disappear. The team ducked into the maze of ruined buildings, moving quickly and silently as the distant hum of engines grew louder. They knew the Empire's forces were closing in, but for now, they had the upper hand. The virus was in. They had struck the first blow. As they disappeared into the shadows, Elias couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had just done. The Empire would retaliate. They always did. But for the first time, humanity had struck back, and it was only the beginning. We did it, Nadia breathed, her voice a mix of relief and disbelief. Elias glanced at her, his expression unreadable. This is just the start. Now we make them regret coming here. The sharp hiss of static cut through the quiet. Elias adjusted his earpiece, crouching low beneath the crumbled remains of an overpass. The weight of the past few hours clung to him. Every breath felt heavy. The mission had been a success, but now, as dust settled over the war-torn city, the consequences were beginning to unfold. He glanced at Marcus, who knelt beside him, scanning the streets through his scope. They're hunting us, Marcus muttered, not taking his eyes off the horizon. His voice was rough, a sharp edge of anticipation hidden beneath his usual calm. I expected as much, Elias replied, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. They can't let a strike like that go unanswered. From their vantage point, they could see the distant hum of activity. The Empire's forces had begun sweeping the ruins, methodically picking apart the sectors closest to the calm tower. Searchlights carved through the gloom, and the low thrum of drones overhead was constant. It was only a matter of time before the Empire's soldiers closed in. Can we outrun them? Nadia's voice cracked through the earpiece, tight with tension. She was holed up 2 blocks away, monitoring their enemies' movements from a makeshift command center inside a destroyed office building. They're spreading faster than I thought. It's like they're everywhere. Elias clicked the transmitter. We're not running, Nadia. We need to regroup at the fallback point, but we can't just disappear. If we can lure them to Sector 9, we'll have the advantage. Sector 9, once a bustling industrial district, had been obliterated in the first wave of the Empire's assault. Now, it was a maze of collapsed buildings, fallen girders, and underground passages. It was the perfect terrain for a smaller, mobile force to take on a much larger one. Elias had chosen it carefully, knowing that if they were going to fight back, it had to be on their terms. You sure about this? Marcus asked, narrowing his eyes. We're good, but they've got the numbers. This could turn ugly real fast. Elias met his gaze, the weight of leadership pressing on him. We're not here to win every fight, Marcus. We're here to make sure they never forget the ones we did. Marcus grinned, a wild gleam in his eye. Fair enough. Let's give 'em hell, then. They moved quickly, weaving through the wreckage of the city, every step careful, every sound muffled by the debris and dust. As they reached the edge of Sector 9, Elias paused to take in their surroundings. The setting sun cast long, jagged shadows across the twisted metal and broken concrete. It felt like they were descending into the belly of a beast. Nadia's voice buzzed in his ear again. They're closing in. 3 squads plus drones. ETA 5 minutes. Copy that, Elias responded. Get to the fallback point and set the charges. We'll meet you there. Nadia hesitated. You better make it, Elias. We will, he assured her, though his stomach twisted at the thought of how close things had already come. She didn't need to hear his doubt. Not now. The ground rumbled beneath their feet as the first wave of Empire soldiers entered the sector. Elias and Marcus hunkered down, eyes trained on the advancing figures, humanoid, yet unmistakably alien. Tall, sleek armor glinted under the fading sunlight, and their movements were unnaturally precise, guided by the cold logic of their war machines. "Wait for it," Elias whispered, gripping his rifle tightly. Beside him, Marcus was as still as stone, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The seconds ticked by painfully slow. The Empire's forces fanned out, unaware of the trap they were walking into. Elias counted 3 drones, their sharp, metallic whine cutting through the air as they circled above the soldiers. "No," Elias breathed. Marcus fired first, the echo of his rifle crackling through the air like thunder. One of the drones dropped instantly, its engine sputtering as it spiraled into the ground. The Empire soldiers reacted immediately, forming a tight formation and returning fire. The sky lit up with bolts of blue energy, sizzling through the air just inches from where Elias and Marcus took cover. Elias popped up from behind a fallen column, his shots precise and lethal. 2 of the soldiers crumpled, but their numbers barely seemed to thin. The rest advanced relentlessly, their weapons raining fire in every direction. Smoke filled the air, mingling with the dust and the acrid scent of burning metal. "Fall back!" Elias shouted over the chaos. They sprinted through the ruins, ducking and weaving as the Empire closed in. The sound of battle echoed through the sector, but they were almost there, almost at the fallback point. Marcus covered Elias, his rifle cutting down any soldier who got too close. Finally, they rounded a corner where Nadia waited, crouched near a half-collapsed wall. "Charges are set!" she yelled over the roar of gunfire. "Do it!" Elias commanded, diving for cover. Nadia hit the detonator. The ground shook violently as the explosives ripped through the foundations of the surrounding buildings. Entire structures collapsed in a wave of destruction, burying the Empire's forces under tons of debris. For a moment there was silence, broken only by the distant rumble of the fallen towers. Elias stood slowly, surveying the aftermath. The Empire's soldiers were gone, but he knew this victory was fleeting. Nadia wiped dust from her face, her expression weary but triumphant. "That bought us some time." Elias nodded, but his eyes were on the horizon. More would come. They always did. And humanity would be ready. The air was thick with the scent of ash and ozone. The remnants of the destroyed Sector 9 still smoldered behind them, but there was no time to linger. Elias, Marcus, and Nadia sprinted across the broken landscape, hearts pounding as the ominous whine of approaching drones grew louder. The Empire's forces were regrouping, and this time they wouldn't fall so easily. "They're on us," Nadia gasped, her breath ragged. "More drones, at least 3, maybe 4. Elias could feel it too. The Empire was relentless. They'd lost dozens of soldiers and drones in the last ambush, but they were adapting, learning. The Empire never stopped evolving. "We can't outpace them," Marcus said, his voice grim as he scanned the skyline. The ruins of the city offered little cover now. "If we keep running, they'll pick us off one by one." Elias knew Marcus was right. The fallback point had given them a brief reprieve, but the Empire's reinforcements were closing in. There was no time to regroup, no chance to dig in. "Then we stop running," Elias said, his tone sharp with resolve. "We make our stand here." Nadia stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Here? We're outnumbered. They'll tear us apart." "We don't need to win," Elias replied, his voice steady. "We just need to hit them hard enough that they think twice about coming after us again. We can use the terrain to our advantage, force them into a choke point." Marcus nodded, already understanding the plan. "We take out the drones first. That'll buy us some time before their infantry catches up." The 3 of them moved quickly, positioning themselves in the skeletal remains of a once towering building. Its upper floors had long since collapsed, but its lower levels still provided enough cover to set up an ambush. Broken walls and scattered debris created narrow corridors, forcing the Empire's forces to funnel into a confined space. Elias crouched low, rifle at the ready. His breath was steady, his mind focused. They had survived this long because of one simple truth: humanity knew how to adapt. The Empire, with all its technological superiority and relentless efficiency, underestimated the resilience of the species it sought to conquer. "They're coming," Marcus whispered, his eyes locked on the horizon. The whir of drones grew louder, the hum of their engines vibrating through the air. "Get ready!" The first drone appeared, sleek and deadly, its sensors scanning the ruins for signs of life. Elias waited, heart hammering in his chest, as it drew closer. Then, with a single sharp crack from Marcus's rifle, the drone spiraled out of the sky, crashing into the rubble with a deafening explosion. "Go!" Elias shouted, and they sprang into action. Nadia unleashed a volley of AMP grenades, sending the remaining drones tumbling to the ground, their circuits fried. The sky briefly cleared, but the reprieve was short-lived. A squad of Empire infantry emerged from the haze, moving with the cold precision that marked their kind. Their armor gleamed under the fading light, and their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. "Hold them here!" Elias barked, taking aim. The first shots rang out, shattering the eerie calm of the battlefield. The Empire's soldiers returned fire, energy bolts searing through the air. One struck the wall near Elias, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. Marcus and Nadia held the line beside him, each shot precise, calculated. They fought with the desperation of people who knew they had no other option, but there was no fear, only resolve. "They're pushing!" Nadia shouted, ducking behind a crumbling pillar as another volley of energy blasts tore through the air. Elias gritted his teeth. The Empire's soldiers were relentless, their movements coordinated and flawless. But there was a weakness in that, too, an over-reliance on structure and order. They couldn't adapt the way humans could. And that was their greatest flaw. "We can't hold them forever," Marcus grunted, reloading his rifle. "What's the plan, Elias?" Elias glanced around, calculating their options. They had one more trick up their sleeve, an old mining shaft, hidden beneath the debris to their left. If they could lure the Empire's soldiers into it, the tunnel's instability would do the rest. "We fall back to the shaft," Elias said, motioning to the others. "Nadia, set the charges on the support beams. We'll collapse the tunnel on them." Nadia didn't hesitate. She sprinted to the entrance of the tunnel, her fingers working quickly to place the explosives. Meanwhile, Elias and Marcus laid down covering fire, forcing the Empire's soldiers to keep their distance. As the last charge was set, Elias gave the signal. "Now! Fall back!" They retreated into the tunnel just as the Empire's forces surged forward, unaware of the trap. The ground trembled as the charges detonated, sending a cascade of rubble crashing down. The tunnel collapsed, burying the Empire's soldiers in an avalanche of debris. Silence followed the roar of destruction. Dust filled the air, thick and suffocating. Elias coughed, wiping grime from his face as he surveyed the aftermath. "We did it," Nadia breathed, collapsing against the wall in exhaustion. "For now," Elias said, his voice heavy with the weight of what was still to come. "They'll be back." But for the moment they had won. And humanity's flame, flickering though it was, refused to be extinguished.